What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Save Continue Newscast, episode 146, I believe. Broadcast. My name is Tommy Shelby. With me, as always, Shanee Howard.
Hi.
Mr. Ryan Jermaine Robinson. And Shanee, tell us about what you've been doing this week. Let's hear it.
Playing Birth by Sleep. I got to a point where I was super underleveled. I couldn't figure out why.
Yeah.
I figured it out. Doing well with it now.
Okay. Almost done?
No, there's like 3 playthroughs of that game. Each of the characters you have to like play through it again. So no, I am a third of the way done.
Okay. It's like Nier Automata.
So you gotta play that game 26 times.
You don't really only have to play it 3 times.
But you will play it 26 times. That's how many letters are in alphabet, right?
Sure.
Yeah. 26.
I started Pokemon Go again. Me and Berto have been playing it, and it's been really nice.
Are you playing it again in preparation for the Let's Go games?
No.
Okay, because you can take your shit into that game.
Awesome. I did not know that.
Yeah.
No. They did some updates, and then I don't know. I was just feeling nostalgic for like the summer everyone walked everywhere.
That was a good summer.
It was a good
That
summer.
was a crazy time for fucking mobile game, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I work at a museum, not like with the museum, but I work like inside of a museum now. So there's a bunch of Pokestops, and I see people all the time playing it there. So
It's kind of like a little place frozen in time.
So yeah, I've been playing it. I have just been having it since I have amazing battery life. My new phone. I've just been keeping it in my apron, like on and like walking around with it.
Shanee, you should be working, okay?
I am working, but I'm also getting those steps and getting those candies.
Sure.
And when I take a bathroom break, flipping those Pokestops.
Cool.
And then
Want me to get that for you?
No, that's fine.
Battery life's fucked now.
Yep. And then what else have I been doing? Oh, I've been reading a fuck ton.
What have you been reading?
A lot of fantasy books.
Narnia.
I've just been reading Narnia over and over again.
Cool. Ryan,
Yeah.
what you been doing?
Well, I've been, as you mentioned during the newscast, I've been playing a lot of Battle Royale games.
Okay.
And upon reflection, I feel that my my newfound enjoyment of those, it was interesting to me because I remember before, like, I was terrified of Battlegrounds. Like, I couldn't play it because the anxiety just...
I mean, you played it. You played it pretty okay.
Yeah, but I was, like, terrified the entire... There was this, like, and, like, what pushed me over almost was Tom sitting next to me, and when a guy came into the room, like, he screamed and almost gave me a heart attack.
Yeah.
And I just, like, I can't play them. It's too much. But then I got into it through Fortnite, and then I went through H1Z1, and then I've been playing mostly, like, kind of a balance between PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds and H1Z1, and having a really good time with both of them. I started up Assassin's Creed Origins again, and I'm having a lot of fun with that. A lot of
killing?
Yeah, I like it because I like a good revenge story, so that's basically what that game is. I want to get through the story because I want to play that Mummy DLC.
Just play the Mummy Demastered.
Nah, I want some full 3D mummies. I want some polygonal mummies. And also, I haven't had running water in my apartment for 3 days.
Why?
A water main exploded.
Did Cinnamon do it?
Yeah. Yeah. No, a water main burst outside of my apartment, and the city has taken their sweet time with fixing it, and that really sucks.
You gonna be reimbursed for anything?
So
yeah.
what ended up happening was so they were working on it yesterday, and then I get a text while I'm at work, like, hey, so they were repairing it, but the repair failed, so it's gonna take another few hours. And then I get a call from the apartment complex, and they're asking me like, yeah, so it's still not done. And,
Yeah.
and I was like, well, how long is this gonna take? Because we're going on 2 days now. Now it's day 3. And they were like, well, they've got the repair done, but they want to give it some time to set. But we're gonna give you a key to a vacant apartment so that you can use the shower and toilet in that apartment.
Oh.
So that was, but it was kind of bittersweet because I went to that apartment last night, and that apartment is huge, and I'm like, man, I wish I lived in this apartment.
Yeah.
And I could conceivably afford it, but at the same time, it's 2 bedrooms, and it feels like a waste.
No, man, one's the game room.
One for you, one for someone.
Yeah. It is a really nice apartment, and I might move into it. I don't know, but yeah, I didn't realize how much I would miss running water. And I miss it a lot.
You should be getting some sort of compensation because your apartment's technically not livable without the running water thing. So.
Well, it's livable when they give them access to this other apartment,
Yeah.
so it's fine.
Texas Apartment Association would side with you.
Well, I don't know.
If you guys didn't know, Shanee's the Texas Hammer. She knows law, water law.
Yeah.
Water.
She specializes
only
in water law.
only water
Yeah.
law.
But yeah, that's basically been it. Yeah, I want to get back to playing some Battlegrounds because I really like it.
Sure.
I'm really into it. And
How many bottles have you peed in?
0.
You're surviving it well.
Yeah. No. You know, I play Battlegrounds on computer.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been playing with a controller, and I've been killing people while
Nice.
playing with the controller,
I imagine you would.
and it feels really cool. It
Nice.
feels really good to me.
People playing Fortnite on phones or killing people on PC.
I don't know anything about Fortnite. I don't play that baby game. No, but I killed a guy by punching him. That was really awesome.
Oh, those are like the most tense for me when I don't have a weapon. I'm just like, oh.
Yeah, it was really funny. And I killed a guy, and I took his he had a really flashy jacket on and some really cool glasses, and I wore it, and I felt really cool.
You
So,
should.
I've been having fun.
I have a friend
Cool.
that plays PUBG where he only will wear the clothes of the victims he has killed.
So he goes in naked every time.
Yep.
Cool. I like that.
So,
What about you? What have you been playing?
this week, because of the Steam sale, I
Oh.
purchased Trials Evolution,
Great.
Trials Fusion,
Great.
Trials of the Blood Dragon,
Okay.
Orcs
of
Must
Trials.
Die 1 and 2,
Okay.
Raiden 4, Blaze Blue Calamity Trigger,
That was Boo.
Blaze Blue, River City Melee, The Basement Collection,
Very fun, by the way.
Old School Doom 3, and Puyo Puyo Tetris for like the 4th time. I've been playing mostly Trials Evolution. Still the best Trials game. Really excited for Trials Rising, as we talked about during E3. And what else? I played about half of Quarantine Circular.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really awesome so far. I didn't realize you play as many different characters in that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm liking it a lot so far. I'm sure I'll finish that up here pretty soon.
Could you say so far at this point, are you liking it more than Subsurface?
I gotta see where the story goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I've been thinking about picking up Subsurface for a while, and I don't know why I've been hesitating on it, because it's a very small investment, and
Yeah.
both monetarily and also in terms of time. But one of the things I really have a lot of trepidation about with games of that nature is does Subsurface end in a satisfying, or does it I hate stories like that where they just kind of just end and there's no real satisfaction to anything.
I was very satisfied with the ending of Subsurface Circular.
Yeah. Is there only one ending?
Well, I mean, I guess technically there's 2, because at the end you make a choice.
Okay.
But, yeah. Subsurface had 2 very, blah, mind-blowing moments, you know?
Yeah.
I'm hoping to get that same thing out of Quarantine Circular.
Is it a revelation that they were on Earth the whole time?
No, you already know. You know that straight away.
That's right.
Subsurface deals much more with AI, whereas Quarantine Circular so far deals with aliens and plague. But really cool so far. But yeah, that's it. Trials. And this. That's about it.
I played a little bit of that River City Melee.
Yeah. I haven't played it yet.
It's really cool.
I bought it because it was the only River City I didn't have.
Yeah, it's a really cool game, and like pulling off the different special moves for each character is like they're cool, and like a lot of them are there's very specific to like certain specific circumstances, like are you holding an item at this time, or like are you coming down from a jump or stuff like that. It's really neat.
So is it a fighting game?
It's like yeah, it's okay. So it's kind of like a it is very much a like you have there are 4 teams, and each team each round each team sends one person in to fight.
Okay.
And then you have to beat everyone else.
So it's like King of Fighters Smash Brothers.
Yes.
That's cool. Yeah, I'll give it a shot at some point.
I also wonder if you can do family share with more than one account at a time.
Well, I would assume so, because I know that I could also share with Shanee, and I'm already sharing with you.
Yeah. We should all just share our Steam accounts with each other.
Because we're a family.
I'll get you up to 500 games overnight, Shanee.
Yeah.
Oh man.
You just can't play the battlegrounds.
There's certain like user license agreement games that you can't play.
Yeah.
But like the majority of them, you'll be able to play.
Good.
Yeah.
And you share with us, and we can up our Otomi game so that when you want to talk to us about those, then we can keep up.
Yeah. I'm
So-
down.
I almost bought, and probably will buy before the sale's over, Analog and Hate Plus. Have you played those? No. I want to play them. Like I've been interested in them before even meeting you. Like not meeting you, but before befriending you. I'm like, they are some of the highest rated Otomi games.
Yeah, I've seen people talk about them on the forums. I just
Yeah.
haven't played them.
I think Analog is before Hate, even though it's like Analog : a Hate story. I do think Hate Plus is still a sequel to Analog.
So if the purpose of an Otomi is to fall in love, is Hate the opposite of an Otomi?
No, there's still like relationships and falling in love.
And then also, there's plenty of Otomis that have bad endings where the character hates you.
Sure.
So I mean, they call it a bad ending, but I mean, if that's your goal,
Yeah.
That's the best ending.
yeah.
Yeah, so I might pick those up.
It depends what you want in your life. Love or
Hate.
hate.
I love
we-
Hate.
Do we have any trivia today?
No, I didn't bring any trivia. Oh, I also played Monkey Ball Ticket Blitz,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
which is super awesome, except you have this trackball that's like the size of a basketball that you're doing this with. And the courses, like straight away, the first course is like littered with holes for you to fall through.
Yeah.
Did you
That-
fall?
Because it wants to take your money.
Yeah.
Did
So
you
it's-
fall any holes?
Oh yeah, it's super fucking hard, but really fun.
You also got to experience firsthand the disappointment of the Injustice arcade game.
Yeah, the Injustice arcade game is a joke.
It's just a blown up version of the mobile game.
Well, there's not even like a joystick. It's just big buttons for you to hit.
Because the mobile game is just
Wait.
tap the screen.
Yeah.
Do you think you can't move your character?
Nah.
I mean, I didn't play it, but
So-
I assume you can move your character.
Well-
I think it's more like Infinity Blade, isn't it?
No. Okay. So like, with the game is like instead of moving your character, you just tap the screen to do different attacks, and like you tap or swipe or whatever to do different attacks, but you don't ever actually move the character across
Like
the screen.
freely.
Yeah.
Oh, that's disappointing.
So that was really dumb. I played a really awesome Alien light gun shooter, like Alien, like the franchise Aliens. I can't remember what it was called, but it was so much fun, and I might go back just to play that again.
Sounds like a good time. I like a good light gun game. I haven't played one in a
Yeah,
while.
very generous too.
How's
Like
that?
because I played a long time off of 1 credit. I mean, obviously it's determined on skill as well. If you die quick, obviously, but like, yeah, I played a long time.
Is it like a Terminator or like a Time Crisis?
what do you consider the difference to be?
Or Terminator, the gun is fixed.
No, you pick up the gun.
Okay.
You've got 3 inputs: trigger, reload on the bottom of the clip, and then a grenade button.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's awesome. So I gotta play that some more.
Yeah.
Saw some Ghostbusters arcade, but like it looked real dumb, so I didn't play it.
Did it have proton packs?
No, it had like this gun, right, that shot like physical balls
No.
at
Thank you.
a screen.
No, thank you.
It was
Yeah,
very
I've seen
strange.
it.
No, thank you.
Yeah,
I wanna hold a proton pack.
yeah.
If I'm playing a Ghostbuster game, in the arcade, I wanna hold a proton pack.
They had that Walking Dead arcade game that's supposedly pretty good, but I didn't play
I didn't
that.
know there was an arcade game.
Yeah.
I've been hearing a lot about like a really big, like an enormous, new Space Invaders game or.
Yeah, I played that. I was bad at it. It looks awesome,
Yeah.
but I'm not good at it.
Okay.
Yeah, last week me and Berto went bowling with some friends, and we played at University Bowl. They have this like giant arcade, giant Connect 4 game.
I played that.
It
I
was
won.
nauseating.
I loved it.
Well, it's just like all the circles, and like
Yeah.
they have like the lines around them, so it all just kind of felt like they're all like zooming in. And I was starting to get like weird, like I don't want to say it was vertigo because I've had vertigo, but like it was very similar to that feeling.
Sure.
I was like, I did not like this.
Yeah, I was
But-
into it. But
They also had 4-person air hockey there,
I did that too.
and that was
Lost horribly.
fun.
Like 4 people against each other.
Yeah, like
That sounds fun.
everyone has one side of the table. It's a square instead of a rectangle.
It's an elimination thing.
Hockey Royale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Start out with 100 players.
Was there any pinball? Is there a
No,
pinball?
there's no pinball there.
I feel like there was. I saw a pinball machine at University Bowl, but we're with 3 other couples. There was 8 of us, so it's like.
Yeah.
I miss playing like
But-
actual pinball.
But I'm actually pretty good at pinball. Yeah, and I like it. What else did we play there? I played something else there.
Else, there's no T.
Holy shit, Tom.
Says the guy who says "Old Soul."
Also,
Sure. Does everybody pick on Tom, huh?
No.
you invited it into your life. Like,
No. No, I'm just. I'd like to go. We were supposed to go to that pinball's place, right? Wasn't that what it's called?
Yeah, Shanee had promised to take us, and then
But
she
then-
never
but
did.
then-
So
Ryan,
actually, Sandy asked me about that today. She was like, "Shanee, ever gonna take you to pinballs?"
if
No,
if
probably
Ryan
not.
if Ryan doesn't work on Sundays, well, I also have Mondays off now.
I don't have Mondays off. So. Well, you can take Tom to pinballs, so he can have a good time at least.
Yeah, you can take me to pinballs.
All right.
You have to pay though.
Yeah.
Okay.
See?
I want lunch too.
I'm not paying for that. you can buy your own lunch.
Yeah.
All right. So today, Shanee wants me to educate
The children.
the children on certain things, but we're not going to do that. We're going to each educate each other on different things. All right?
Sure.
All right. So, what are you guys? What are we going to talk about? What am I going to educate you about?
Okay, so
What's something you want me to know more about? So I can stop saying stupid stuff besides new metal.
Let's talk about platformers.
All right.
So, Shanee,
Tell me how to be good.
let's talk about 2D platforming.
Okay.
All right. Interesting thing about 2D platforming is in older games, old like 2600 games, right? Like Pitfall. Let's think about Pitfall, right? I'm sure there was platformers before that. That's one of the earliest ones I can think of. In Pitfall, the Atari 2600 had how many buttons?
I don't know.
1.
One. Okay.
It had a joystick and 1 big red button, right? And that big red button was your jump button, right? So you can move left, right, and jump. So you have 1 movement speed. So that kind of gets you used to like hold to the right, press the jump button when approaching a jump, and you're good to go. right? I mean, that's definitely simplifying it because Pitfall is pretty fucking hard, but that's the basics of jumping from one platform to another in that game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then we get into the 8-bit generation, and like that specifically, the most popular one, the one that saved video games as we know it, Super Mario Brothers, right? So I was actually showing this to Bradley a few weeks ago. He was playing that game. Then we moved on to Super Meat Boy and similar games. The interesting thing about Super Mario Brothers, and I think that a lot of young people don't realize, is that so on an NES controller you have two inputs, not counting like as far as like actual face buttons, right? You have A and B. That's it. Once again, two big red buttons. The B button is your run button and also your power up button. So if you have like a fire flower, that's what you're shooting with. The A button is your jump button. And I find that a lot of younger people playing old games like that have a tendency to walk and try to jump over things. When in actuality, like you should be holding that run button pretty much the entire time.
Yeah, as I've gotten older, I've also realized I should be running constantly, and that has improved my platforming some.
Sure.
How come that's just not this is a default speed then?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I guess there are times when slowing down is helpful, right?
Yeah.
Because like there are jumps in that game where you make the jump and immediately after that jump there is another jump, and if you don't hit that right, you might need to stop and slow down. Even in that game, in the first Super Mario Brothers, Mario has like a quick turn, right? He has that weird sprite where his arm's up and his legs up. That's specifically for him slowing down. So I guess it could be useful, but there are many jumps in that game that you cannot make without running. So like if you just see it and try to take your time with it, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
I don't know. Then let's get to like, we go into 3D games, right? So Mario 64. And even some other games. Early Jack. I think Precursor Legacy had some of this. In that jumping, there were multiple ways to jump, right? And you experienced that this year with Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
3D Mario games have many ways to jump. I think Sunshine might have the most ways to jump, but maybe Odyssey does. Hard to say.
That cap really adds another
Right.
aspect.
But like, jumping in those games, you have a jump and you have a running jump, but you also have wall jumps, you have triple jumps, double jumps. Odyssey, you have the whole cap. In Sunshine, you have flood. And there are specific jumps in those games, most of which are not necessary to just finish the game, which you did, you finished the game. But for like certain secret areas, there are several secret areas in those games that you cannot reach without doing specific ones of those jumps. So learning those are really, that's very advantageous. But, I don't know. What advice can you give on platformers, Ryan?
0, because I'm bad at all video games.
That's not so.
I don't know what video games that I am good at. And that's something that I think about fairly often is like what game, like I have played video games my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And but at the same, and I don't know if it's if it's an internalized thing or what, but there isn't a game or like a franchise that I consider myself to be actually good at.
I watched you when we did, I don't know if it was when we did Extra Life or not, but I watched you play, no, it was when it released on 3DS. I watched you play River City Ransom, the NES version. And I'd say you're pretty fucking good at that game. Now that game doesn't require a lot of like physical skill, but you have that game pretty well memorized, you know?
Oh, I guess I never thought about that.
Yeah, there's definitely some things about that I forgot, and then you brought it up, and I'm like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's just not,
I get lost in that game,
It's pretty easy to. That's why I have most memories, because I remember where I'm not supposed to go.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm bad at platformers, but I try to improve upon it. But I have noticed that with platformers, most of the time I will not mute the background music and will actually listen to it. And normally finding the rhythm and the music will help me with timing my jumps.
Mm-hmm.
Then I've got a game for you. It's called Bit Trip Runner.
Oh yeah.
I have played that.
Yeah.
It's really more of a rhythm game. But I guess, yeah, technically it's a platformer, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go over some Street Fighter vocabulary, or even just fighting game vocabulary in
The
general.
Magic Pixel, chip damage, denial, punish.
Do
punisher.
we know what a wake up is?
Wake up is when you're getting you were knocked down,
Uh-huh.
and then you get up and you do a thing immediately.
Right, you do an attack immediately, right?
Yeah.
So in Street Fighter, we most commonly see this with like a dragon punch.
Yeah.
And it's very, very useful to know.
Mm-hmm.
What else?
And you got your 3D fighters though, where like you can. I don't know if this is still a thing. Really, this is as much now. But I remember back in the early days of the Virtual Fighter series, one of a key strategy to the wake up, as it's called, is rolling to the left or right, and to get kind of an angle on the enemy. And then when you get up from the roll, then you push the kick button. Because you get that wake up kick on him, and then it immediately knocks your opponent down.
Yeah, well, interesting. Like I played a lot of Tekken 7 after you bought that for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like 100% of that thing. I'm real bad at 3D fighters about using the depth. You know, like my mind just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
But I still feel like I got pretty good at it without that.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know what a cross up is?
I don't know what a cross up is, but
Isn't it? No, just tell me. Cause I'm assuming my guess is wrong.
So a cross up is a move that very quickly puts you on the other side.
Oh, I was thinking right.
Yeah.
I was like, isn't it where you just switch?
that's like King of Fighters. You got that roll.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the roll could be considered a cross up, I think.
Yeah.
Although I think, well, I don't know. I guess I don't really know if a cross up has to have an attack associated with it or not.
Mm-hmm.
But most of them do.
I was like, I know. I can't remember which game, but I mean, like, there's some like where you can just like grapple and switch.
Yeah, and it could be a jump. It could be straight through the character. But yeah,
I
cross
think my
up.
favorite thing about fighting games is how on the surface they're all like very similar, but getting down and playing them is like they're so different. Like King of Fighters is such a different experience from Street Fighter.
Mm-hmm.
Street Fighter is a different experience from Killer Instinct or Mortal Kombat.
Well, it's funny. The first time I played the Double Helix Killer Instinct, I was like, they just copied Street Fighter, you know. But then actually going through and playing more of it, I was like, no, they really have their own thing going on here.
Mm-hmm. I would say stylistically and visually, it invokes Street Fighter.
Well, I mean, even things like all of your attacks are mapped the same.
Yeah.
You know, things like EX moves work the same.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of games outside Street Fighter have that.
Right.
Street Fighter invented that, but yeah. Everybody knows what a parry is.
Yeah.
Do we know V-skill?
B skill? No.
Is that specific to Street Fighter though?
That's specific to Street Fighter 5.
Yeah.
Variety skill.
I actually don't know what the V stands for.
Virtual
so it
skill.
could be variety. Does anybody remember the Comedy Central show Viva Variety?
No.
No.
The house band was Real Big Fish. Anyhow.
They did the Take on Me.
Did they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
They did. So V-skill in Street Fighter 5, you hit both medium attacks at the same time. It's something that every character has that they can do at any time. There's no meter or conditions needed to do it. And it's just a different style of attack for every character.
So what is the advantage to not doing that every time you do that move?
Not doing what every time?
The V skill.
I mean, you could do it every time, but it's not going to help you in certain situations. So V-skill is typically a very simple move. Like with Ken, it just makes him dash forward. That's it.
Okay.
You know, so that could be useful at some points, but it could also be really bad at certain points. With Chun-Li, or no, with Cammy rather, it's the V skill is a cross up, so it just puts you on the other side and hits back.
Wait, so in that instance, the V skill is an attack?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
With Ryu, it's a parry, and he's I think one of the only characters in that game that has a parry.
Okay.
So yeah, there's V trigger. V trigger burns meter, so you have to build up your V meter to use V trigger.
Right.
And that is typically something that will like augment your character, right? So like with Chun-Li and Ryu, it like adds fire or water to the attacks, just makes the attack stronger.
Right.
Stuff like that. Do you know about like the isms for like the Alpha series?
Mm-mm.
So in Alpha 3, there's 3 different isms that you can select from after you select your character. And these all determine how your super meter works. So you're going to build meter in the same way regardless, but like, you know, Street Fighter Alpha has a huge roster, and that specific, like changing the way those meters work basically multiplies that roster by 3. So you've got Xism, which is most similar to like Street Fighter, like Super Turbo, where it's just 1 meter that you burn immediately to do a super move of some kind, right? Super powerful, but you got 1 shot at it and that's it. You have Aism, which is like the most commonly known one, where you have like 3 chunks of meter, and you can use different attack buttons to determine the strength of the super move. Then you have Xism, which is what the most like high level players that play that game typically use. Yism. Yism is that one. Xism is the Super Turbo one. Yism is basically a custom combo. You activate it, and that meter burns and turns everything that you do into 1 long combo.
So can you do that in every Alpha game? Or
No, just
the first one?
It's actually kind of funny. Like Alpha 1, 2, and 3 are like very, very different from each other. Yeah.
I have a question. And I don't know if you maybe like know this. So the game that comes to mind, I know other games do this, like is MVC3, where like you can pick like the 3 different kind of types whenever you pick your character.
Yeah.
What is the advantage of necessarily having that? Is it like just adding a lot to the gameplay, or is it just to make up mechanics of other stuff?
I do think it adds to the gameplay in that, like, in fighting games where you have the ability to tag in and out, one, typically the character that is tagged out recovers some life, and 2, it's, you know, if Ryan and I are playing against each other and I have a character who's about to die, it's best for me to switch out to somebody else, so that it adds a level of strategy
Also, you
there.
want like the like projectile, like the kind of like different modes you can play the same character in.
What do you mean? I don't understand.
I think I know what she's talking about, but I can't place it.
So like when you pick like Deadpool or whoever, like there's like the 3 different like varieties of like gameplay for that character.
Yeah. The Alpha games have that too.
Yeah, that's not. I don't know that Alpha does. Alpha might.
I know other
But
games
a lot
do
of
it.
fighting games have that. Yeah.
Does it like make it, I guess, like more of a balanced or imbalanced game, or does it just like add another mechanic to a fighting game, or is there like something that like makes it, in your opinion, like better than like other games that don't do it?
Almost similar to the variant system in MKX, though.
If we are talking about the same thing, I'm assuming that, and I'm assuming we are. I can't really remember from Marvel, but it's basically selecting what super move you can do.
Yeah.
That's not. I feel like somewhat.
At least in like most Capcom games, so this is why I assume that MVC is that way. That's what you were doing.
Okay.
I think
so. It doesn't like add. So it doesn't really change like the type of combat you'll be doing with that character.
Correct.
I think in I feel like I remember in MVC3 you were choosing like what kind of assist someone would have.
I think you might be right.
Because you had your tag button and you had your assist button, and the assist button would and so like sometimes people had like an assist that would be angled up, some people had an assist that would be angled straight forward, and then like a lot of times when you were choosing those characters, you would choose which one of those you wanted to have.
Yeah, you might be right.
I think you are. I just picked them at random because I didn't really understand that part of it.
Yeah,
you see that a lot with fighting games. 5 has it where you are like, that is what you're doing. You're picking what you want your super to be. Ultra 4 is probably the most interesting iteration of something like that, because you are picking which version of that character you want. So like vanilla Street Fighter 4, Super Street Fighter 4, Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition, Ultra. So you're picking the balancing for those characters from the specific games, which is why like Ultra 4 blew up, right? That is probably the most played version of that game, but it's like probably the most broken, you know? because you're playing like the arcade version of Ryu versus the Ultra 4 version of Guile or whatever. And it's just it's crazy.
I'd like to revisit Capcom versus SNK, specifically because I remember every character in that game had a Capcom version to them and an SNK version of them, and even while playing that game, I was never really clear on what the difference was between the two.
Yeah, I've never played much of that series at all, but I do know that those were developed by SNK, not by Capcom.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know, MVC3, Shanee, so you said Berto played a lot of MVC3.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, he
He's a
did.
tournament person, right?
I don't know.
Did you kill something?
Yeah, she just killed a bug on the wall.
Yeah, it was a black spider and had a red mark on its back, so I just assumed it's the bad kind.
That's Jordan. He's my friend.
Well, he
Oh.
was your friend.
Sure.
He's still on my shoe. Do you want to have a funeral for him?
Yes. So I've been thinking about, and this episode makes me think about it too, for like a year or so now, and I've brought it up to you guys. I'd like to do a series where we teach each other certain things, like in game. Ryan and I played some Marvel 3 maybe a month or two ago, and like showing him how combos work in that game, because combos in Marvel 3 work way different than most other fighting games. Showing him how you build combos in that game, which is very simple. It's just like a clockwise mechanic, typically, not for every character, but for most characters, right?
Yeah.
Light punch, medium punch, or light attack, medium attack, heavy launcher,
Yeah, I had
and
a lot.
then rinse and repeat.
I had mild success being decent at that game. Of
But,
course, Berto
like-
was much better, so I never felt like that.
But what I really like, and then there was a while back where I tried to show him Mega Man, and like watching his success in those games so quickly, like within minutes, understanding those games probably at a deeper level than he had before is very interesting to me. I think we could all do that with each other. But
Yeah, that'd be nice.
I think that all three of us have genres that we, for some reason, like hadn't touched, just because, like, at first glance, like they weren't interesting to us personally.
most times I'm just intimidated by certain genres.
Yeah.
Like what?
Simulation drive.
Well, not like your fucking Euro Truck Simulator. Yeah, simulation racers. Yeah, I'm bad at those. Or like RTS, I'm usually pretty bad at.
A lot of the time, I will, when looking to get into like a series or a genre, or I guess a specific series or franchise, I usually do research on it, and like if it's more simulation based, then I'll usually look into like what kind of time investment am I looking at for getting the basics down of this game.
I'm terrible at twin-stick shooters. If y'all could like help me out with that.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the time when people struggle with twin-stick shooters, they have difficulty with reconciling like the very basic concept of moving in a different direction than you're shooting, which is something that like when I first
Which is the premise of the.
yeah, like a
of
lot
the
of
genre.
like I think about like the times when my first twin-stick shooter, which I'm pretty sure was Smash TV, and like my natural tendency was to do both sticks in the same direction, because it's just that at the time that's what made the most sense to me.
I just get overwhelmed by all the stuff on the screen.
And that's what I was about to say. Like, I think that twin stick shooters, not always, but typically, as well as bullet hell, are very, very similar to each other, and almost like, twin stick shooters are like the precursor to bullet hell in a way, in that they're more about avoiding than they are about shooting things.
Yeah. I'm bad at avoiding.
Yeah.
I get shot a lot.
But I think most people like concentrate on attacking, when they should be concentrating on getting the fuck out of the way.
Yeah.
But
Move!
yeah.
There's a game that
Sorry, just all I think about was if you could dodge a wrench, you could dodge a ball.
there's a game that I did check it out on, a while ago, called Tormentor X Punisher, which is probably one of my favorite twin-stick shooters to come out in a while. And I think that game would actually, because it's not by any means like the most complicated or difficult one, but I feel like it has a lot of stuff in it that would be good for like skilling you up for like other more
For
difficult.
babies?
Yeah, maybe for babies.
No way, dude. I don't think that game is for babies at all.
It's got some mechanics in it that I haven't seen in other twin stick shooters, but I think that I don't think it's as.
It gets hairy pretty quick.
Yeah, but I think that a lot of them, like I feel like I had an easier time with that than I did with like a game like Maximum Carnage, or anything like that.
Maximum Carnage.
Total Carnage, sorry. But yeah, I think I feel like that game's a good starting point, or maybe even
I think Stardust.
maybe Stardust or what's the other one? What do you think? Resogun maybe?
Well, yeah, I mean, Resogun technically is twin stick, but you're only going horizontally, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know that necessarily helps you with, learning most twin stick games. I'd say like Nano Assault or, Stardust. Or even like Geometry Wars.
Geometry Wars is a good one.
Yeah. And like Geometry Wars, I don't know if the first one has it, but the second and third ones do. They have the pacifist mode, which I think is like super good training for those games because like you don't shoot in pacifism mode. Like you just move the ship, And I feel like taking those steps definitely helps. And most twin stick shooters aren't going to offer you that.
Yeah.
But
I think that I think that when people focus on attacking, like, because you fixate so much on killing what's right in front of you, and then you're not paying attention to anything else.
yeah.
And the thing about those games is that like, no matter how good your shooting is, if you're not good at getting out of the way, then you're not gonna last at it. But
Also, like learning hitboxes. Like a long time ago, we were talking about bullet hell, and I was telling you that like your character model can get hit all over the place. There's just like a little dot in the middle of the character, and that's the dot that can't get hit. And some games show that to you very well, like Death Smiles. It is a giant fucking like gem in the middle of the character.
Yeah.
But other games don't. There are definitely twin stick shooters that work that way, where like you might see something that looks like it hit you, but it goes straight past you. But
I also think that there's a lot of crosstalk between the skill sets for twin stick shooters versus shoot 'em ups.
mm-hmm.
Like I felt like if I got really good at Raiden, I could also hold my own with Total Carnage. Which, by the way, like ever since you said you got Raiden 4, I'm like, I want to play some of that Raiden 4.
Yeah, I think that only the newest one is 6, I think.
Yeah.
6 or 7. I don't know. Whatever the newest one is, that's the only one I don't have now. But, yeah. Ryan.
Yeah.
Tell us, teach us something.
Well, I think that a lot of what I would teach someone about video games would have a lot to do with perspective, not so much, with honing a specific skill. There are a lot of games where I, like for example, like I was talking about with my newfound interest in battle royale games, whereas I had none before. I think a lot of that had to do with I learned, like I jumped into what was of the main ones that people talk about, like the one that was like the most like I don't want to say the most tactical, because I feel like that's probably not apt, but the one that was probably leaned hardest toward like realistic like bullet physics and things like that.
I mean, there was a lot of CS players that jumped over to that.
And then like just basically I felt like if we're talking about presentation alone, I feel like I kind of just jumped into like the deep end of the pool like immediately.
Sure.
Knowing what I know about myself as far as how I deal with like stress and like external stimuli, that was probably like the worst idea. But like getting into like any genre, like not just battle royale, but getting into any genre and like finding like a good starting point. Like for example, when you did that, check it out on what was that fighting game?
Huh.
That that fighting game that you did, like you said, was like baby's first fighter.
Oh yeah, what was that called? Battle Fantasia.
Battle Fantasia.
Yeah.
You know, and like as opposed to like immediately jumping into like Blaze Blue.
Yeah.
You know, like someone starting with something that's like more simplified than that.
Right.
And like by no means do I feel like the mechanics of Fortnite are simple, because that building stuff is like, I don't have the mind for
There's
that.
definitely a huge level of strategy to it. Yeah.
But if we're talking about based on like presentation, like it was just more. I learned to.
It's cartoony.
It's cartoony. It was like more welcoming. There's like the big part of what got to me with Battlegrounds, and maybe to a similar extent H1Z1, was like those periods of just silence, where like I'm the only one on the screen and like nothing is happening, and then all of a sudden like gunshots like right next to my face, and it's just like it was too much. But like kind of easing myself into it was something that was like really like vibrant, and like there was always something going on, so I never felt like I was being taken by surprise.
Yeah.
Like in learning kind of like to ease myself into things like that. I feel like that was something that that I took for granted a lot, and I think that there are a lot of times where people will tell me that they aren't, like they would try a game of a specific genre and they just couldn't get into it, and it was because maybe that game, like the mechanics of that game were like too complicated, and they kind of just turned them off, and they hadn't really skilled up to something like that.
Well, see, that's where I think my problem is with, like, especially with RTS.
Yeah.
Is that I feel like there's and I'm sure I'm wrong, there's thousands of RTS games, right? But I feel like there's a huge gap there where, like, I'm fine with, like, Warcraft.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to me, you know? But then, like, you jump to something like, I don't know.
Civilization?
No.
Civilization's not really the same, though, right? Like,
Yeah.
maybe like Total War, you
Yeah.
know? And that's, like, way more intimidating to me, you
Yeah.
know? And Total War, I could be wrong, but, like, in Total War, you, like, micromanage the smallest things, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And, like, it's weird. I don't know why I'm really good at turn-based, but I've got time to think with turn-based, you know? I don't know.
And that's one of those things where it's like,
So, like, what do I do there?
yeah, and I think that strategy is a little bit harder, right? Because there's you got your turn-based and you have
There-
real-time strategy.
Yeah.
There's definitely a learning curve, but I thought it could be said about like obviously most games, but like especially puzzle games.
Mhm.
I feel like when it's like a different kind of puzzle, like Catherine,
Mm-hmm.
I found that game extremely difficult until I figured out kind of what the pattern was.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just the same with RTS. Like figure out what most people, like most players, like in the game sphere, like what their general like strategy is, and you can quickly learn how to counter it. And then as you come across like different ones, you will like every match you will learn how
Yeah.
to counter things.
I guess what I'm saying, though, is, like, for most genres, I'm able to find, here's a beginner game, here's a little, you know, an intermediate level game, and then here's the really fucking hard shit. And for RTS, I feel like it's always one or the other.
Well,
You know?
it seems like
It's either too easy or way too hard.
I feel like starting a new RTS that like just comes out
Mhm.
is a little bit easier in finding that middle ground because everyone's figuring it out.
I'm not even talking about competitive play. I'm talking about just, like, solo campaigning this shit, you know?
Oh.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of the times, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the games that you play, what you're doing is kind of like very much in the moment, whereas real-time strategy involves you like thinking further ahead
Right.
than what you're used to, and
Sure.
it's hard to kind of shift your mind from like reacting to something in that instant versus like thinking 2 or 3 moves ahead.
Yeah.
And that's a very specific kind of skill set that, like, which would account for the fact that I've never been a very good chess player, because I can't do that.
See, chess I'm fine with. Turn-based I'm fine with, you know?
You ever play the speed chess?
No, I'm no Bobby Fischer.
And with that though, I've also learned to, and this sounds really, I think on one hand, like when I say it, it sounds like it's kind of taking accountability from the developers, but that's not what I mean at all. But I've learned to kind of enhance the experience that I'm having with specific games by kind of being creative with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
For example, I think that my best, most contemporary example with that is with State of Decay 2. And because the game, like outside of the fact that there are zombies everywhere and you're trying to survive, there's not a lot of context to any of the characters. Like they all have backstories or traits that are like procedurally generated.
Yeah, but nothing you really care about.
Right. And so like on one hand, like on a very mechanical level, I can be frustrated by the fact that like I lost this character because he was really good at like medicine, or this character was like really good at firearms or whatever. So that's frustrating on a practical level, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've gotten to the point where like I've gotten to the point where I feel like I've gotten really good at like creating like stories of my own imagination for these people, and like I've created context for like their relationships with each other. Like these two people, they've been dating since the beginning of the apocalypse, and then like let's say like one of them dies, right?
Yeah.
So then I start playing the other one like very much like grief stricken, like it's like really reckless, and like takes all the like the most reckless missions, like because they don't care about tomorrow because without and it's really
That's funny.
It's fun, and like it's role playing by myself, basically.
See, and it's funny you say that. Like I've found myself doing that in games like Tetris or Luminous, but like it's always the same story. It's always, okay, the construction group's here, okay, the demolition group's here. Like that's it. That's always the story. You know?
And it's funny because like at first, like when I would do that, like I would become consciously aware that I was doing it.
Yeah.
And then I would feel like embarrassed. Like no one else knew I was doing it, but like I would feel embarrassed about it because I was like.
And some people need that, you know.
Yeah, and it's not to say that like that I think the game is bad or that it's boring, but like.
But you want that there.
Yeah, but adding that to it for myself, and even like, and I even do it like on a minimal level, right? Like I think about like I don't know, like I'll be playing something like Just Cause, right?
Yeah. And
I'll think about like when I'm destroying like a fuel tank, like a big fuel storage thing. And I think about like what kind of how that's gonna like gum up the works for like that regime, like how inconvenient that's gonna be, like how they're gonna have to reallocate all the resources because I destroyed that supply line, and like the game never comes out and tells me that's what happened.
Right. But
I decide that like that is what is happening.
Do you find yourself doing that in PUBG?
Actually, I recently did.
Yeah. Because there's like no fucking story there, really. You know?
Yeah, and I think and for what that game is, that is fine. But it like there is like a satisfaction that comes along with it. Like I think like I thought like I was just recently playing. I did duos with a random guy the other day, and like I thought about like what if this was a movie, and like we were just like we're two people and we are fighting for like I very much put a death race kind of narrative behind it. I was like, all right, you and I were teamed up, and if we win, like we're prisoners on this island. And if we win, we get our freedom. So like
Hunger Games.
Is it that?
Pretty much Hunger Games.
Basically, yeah.
I thought Hunger Games was just like if you win, like you're like a hero, and like they leave you.
Your district gets like a bunch of like extra food.
But also the living.
Also
the living
and also
and getting
like
bullied.
you don't die. Also, you get like better
But like,
quarters.
isn't it like you could go back into the Hunger Games at some point? Like you could get selected.
You weren't supposed to, but then you could.
Because
they needed to make the second one.
Yeah.
But like I love the idea of like
Catching Fire, I think it was.
Like two two
Yeah,
like
because in
complete
the third one's
strangers,
Mockingjay.
like these two complete strangers who like no reason to trust one another, but we rely on each other to survive, and it's just like that whole like just creating these like little micro narratives with games that I play has like enhanced like the enjoyment of every game, and we're like when I'm playing it, like if I'm playing it by myself, like I very much enjoy the idea of like and I feel like there's like a narrative that like a very like unspoken narrative to that game by itself, with like the whole like survival aspect of like just dropping in and just like the frantic search for like weapons or supplies or whatever, and I feel like that's a narrative in and of itself, because I think that the funny thing about games like that is that when you play them, and they very much are, and I think this is by design, is that when you play it, you are very much compelled to kind of recount the events of that match, like what happened, like how it happened. Like I felt a compulsion to like.
Well, you have to do that, right?
Yeah, like I felt, and I feel like I feel like a compulsion to like tell someone about how like this guy opened the door and he startled me and I pulled the trigger instinctively and killed him, and like having that there is, and like learning to enjoy that part of it is like a really huge thing for me, and I found that I do that a lot in single player games, and I think that. Or like games where like my experience is independent of, you know, anybody else around me, and it's not something that I really do like in multiplayer games. Like I don't really do that in games like World of Warcraft or anything like that, because it's kind of just like I don't really have time to think about that sort of thing. I kind of just, which is ironic.
Well, and there's more there for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a fuck ton of lore.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
There
like
is
even
so much lore.
But that's funny, because even with games like the Elder Scrolls, right, where there is lore everywhere, and there's a story, there's a huge backdrop for what's going on. Even with games like that, I find myself still like creating stories, and I'll create like this, because especially with Skyrim, right, there are no predetermined classes, so like everything, like every class in the game is like you created it,
Right.
And so like I would build these archetypes. Like I built what the closest thing to what I would consider to be a bard in that game, and you know I had a whole backstory for that, and like I don't know, I think that like enhancing my enjoyment through like my own user narrative has, like, I feel like I've gotten better at that over time, and I think that it's given new life to like games that like I would have shelved long ago. Like I feel like I would have been done with Fallout 4 like a while back if I wasn't always doing that every time I played it.
Maybe that's why I dipped on it.
Yeah, but
Like I've almost platinumed Fallout 4.
Yeah.
I've never beat Fallout 4.
Yeah. Well, also that I kind of feel like it's necessary with a game like that, because that story isn't terribly interesting.
Yeah. We should do a deep dive, like research and do a deep dive into the Bethesdaverse.
Yeah.
Because like from what I've been told, like the Elder Scrolls series and the Fallout series and like all the Bethesda Softworks games are like part of some alien's dream or something like that, like don't actually exist.
Yeah, and like and I remember when you had told me that,
Yeah.
like I was immediately like everything
Yeah.
everything about all of those franchises is immediately less interesting to me.
Sure.
Because I hate the idea that it's, and like I get it, like on a macro level, like it was imagined by an actual person,
Right.
and put on a paper, right?
No, it's like those TV episodes where it was all a dream.
Yeah, I hate that.
It's
like
fucking,
I
it's fucking
want
stupid.
this to all like in,
Well, I love Mario too. That happened.
well, in the world of those games, I want this to have actually been happening. Like I don't want it to be like somebody's
That's
like
not,
imagination.
That's not like Mario 2 has like the deepest lore.
No, it doesn't.
You know,
It's not like you're really super emotionally invested in it.
somebody is.
Sure.
Somebody wants to know what the deal is with Fanto.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess like, and you know, and it's not something that like it's not something that I can educate anybody on, but like, you know, giving that kind of person, like, I think that it is important to change your perspective on specific kinds of games once in a while, because I think that there are there are different ways to look at games where maybe you didn't enjoy it, like on
There's a
a
different way
surface
to get
level.
sense of satisfaction and enjoyment out of the game, for
Yeah,
sure.
but like you looking at it through a different lens, like I think it can really basically make a different experience for you. So again, I'm not educating anybody on anything, but that's just what I think.
Point well made, Ryan.
Thank you.
Yes.
Educate us or lend us your perspective.
It's not like I'm educating you guys. I mean,
You might be.
but
I want
recently-
to take a quick second here. Shanee, I don't think you realize how much stuff that you know that Tom and I have no idea about.
That's true.
I feel like there's not much I know that y'all don't know. But so I've recently been hanging out with a lot of people who just like casually game or just getting into it, or even just getting into tabletop role playing games. And there's like basic concepts that I think we all know that like they just are just kind of learning. And I find it really interesting. Like one of them, they didn't understand the mechanic of like a raid party, like having a tank, DPS, and healer, and the different like
Wrecking Ball's a tank.
and picking like your character based off like how you want to play,
Yeah.
rather than like aesthetic or like, oh well, I like this gun, but like using a sniper rifle as like an SMG.
Right.
Or trying to. But with that, I've also been having conversations about RPGs and MMOs. But one of the things I want to talk about is RPGs, as far as your side characters in the game. And really using them to their full potential. Just because I feel like a lot of people...
You mean like characters in your party?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like side characters in your party. Like really, I know a lot of people don't put like a lot of effort into them, and they're just kind of focused on themselves and like leveling themselves up rather than like really creating a party that fits all the needs of what you need. And there's a lot of games that like have characters set out like with especially JRPGs, like obviously the one with the big collar is a gunner, the one with the magic hat is a magic person. And kind of it fits those physical archetypes. But there is... What?
Nothing, go ahead.
No, but there is also quite a few RPGs out there that you can level them up to be more than one thing. And they have the stats, like the base stats, to really be more than just like the spellcaster. They can be a spellcaster / healer.
Sure.
And people don't really take those to an advantage and will give themselves traits and attributes because they don't think the side character is going to do it. Especially a lot of the more involved RPGs do have it to where you can set kind of their priority on spellcasting or their priority on certain spells themselves. Because I've been playing it a lot, like Kingdom Hearts 2 has it where whatever skill sets you give Donald and Goofy, you can say use this first, frequently use this, or never really use this for emergencies. And they don't really put a lot of like time delving into that, and rather just themselves. And they also just get tired of all the grinding that happens in RPGs and don't really use it to figure out what is going to, I guess, enhance their party. And like having like AoE attacks, they're like, oh well, like if I'm gonna use it against a boss, it's not gonna matter. There's plenty of boss fights that you have to fight like a billion enemies before you get to that boss.
Yeah.
It's advantageous to use that grinding time on trying different things out. Like, and people are so afraid of dying or not getting the XP they need to get to the next level because they think the next level is going to be so much better. That's honestly how I feel like a lot of people get burned out on RPGs and don't finish them, is by not really using what's there to their advantage.
Well, it's funny, you talk about, like, you're basically talking about builds, not when you're talking about the grinding and all that, but what you were just talking about really comes down to builds, right? And, like, I think the reason that a lot of, especially newer people to games, don't realize that is because so many games don't offer that. There are a lot that do, right? There are a shit ton. Killing Floor, right? Killing Floor has very set classes, but like I was playing SMG character. It's still, if I do play Killing Floor, that's what I play, right? But like, and yes, it's a shooter, but there are light RPG mechanics in it. But they released like a dual perk system. So like, even though I'm still classified as SWAT, I'm also a tank, I'm also a healer, you know? But I think there are many games that are straight up RPGs that don't offer any of that, you know?
Yeah, but with Psych, the reason I
Like you're playing Diablo 3, right?
yeah.
Like you know where you're gonna dump everything into. Yes, there are different builds you can do, but as far as being helpful in certain ways, like you're kind of limited to your class.
Well, the reason about the builds is to bring it into the parties and really use that, like what we already know, like into really being into your party in a lot of games, like figuring out what you want as like your more of your close range fighting, figuring out like what I guess like to useful for enemies. I do think it's really helpful for me personally to research a little bit, like a quick Google normally will tell me what are
Just a quick little Google.
what your side characters are going to be like, and also like a lot of the websites, like not spoiling the game, will like have the stats of the base character when you get them,
Right.
like what they're going to do, and it can really give you an idea of how much you can progress that character and really how you should look at them. Like,
Well, it's funny too, like games like that, like what you're talking about in general, allow you to play very creatively, and a lot of people don't realize that, you know?
yeah, like a lot of people hate on Fantasy 10 too, and like the dress spheres and having and being able to change that, and when you stat your characters, like it's going to make like Yuna or Pain or Riku like better at certain dress spheres. But it also comes down to like equipping items as well. Like a lot of people are like, oh well, this has the best stats for this, so I need it. It is advantageous to sometimes give, like if you have like a magic user in your thing and they do a lot of offensive magic spells, like giving them gear for that to where they're not dead weight. They're not like not really helping you as much, instead of like trying to basically one man that with cheerleaders on the side.
It's funny because like
And
I think about Final Fantasy, right, and it bounces all over the place in terms of what kind of choice or what the level of choice is going to give you as far as how you develop these characters. Like, you know, we talk about, like, you take the early Final Fantasies, right, with like the job system, right, and you mix and match, like, you know, I'm gonna mix this monk skill with black mage skills, right, and whereas you have, but then you have like a game like Final Fantasy, I don't know, 9, and like everybody pretty much has a like kind of a set role, right? But then you get to 10, and like you have the sphere grid, and like you could like have someone, you could take a character and like have them wander into like the base skills like another character and make a whole nother different character. It's just weird how like it's Final Fantasy is really weird in how inconsistent it is with like the level of choice it wants you to have over how you develop your characters.
But
sorry. Go
I
ahead.
think what else is like pretty important for JRPGs especially is that like even if you're not offered that level of freedom in how you're building out your party, you should still look at it as a collective unit, right? Like as one unit, not your main character and 3 other people.
Right.
Like, I don't know, most recently, which was not really recently, but like I Am Setsuna, you got like this tank dude, right? And like, we get into a fight maybe halfway through the game and I'm just dying over and over and over and over again. And it's not until I worry about this guy's skills and give him provoke because he can take the hits and nobody else can, that we are successful, you know? Like looking at it, even if you don't have the level of customization for each specific character, looking at it as a unit, you know, I think definitely helps.
And I think it helps with the lull that comes with JRPGs.
Like
RPGs in general.
Laughing out loud?
The LULL, lull. The like
okay.
the with the grinding specifically, like you seeing that as just like to get to the next thing instead of using that time to see how your group works, versus like if you encounter just one enemy in the wild or like 3.
Yeah.
And figuring out the most effective ways to use AoEs or single attacks and what's really going to be doing damage. I mean, people like I think are aware that that's what it's there for, but I mean it's called grinding for a reason because it can be extremely tedious. But if
Don't you think though, like specifically to avoid boredom, like probably don't overgrind. Don't grind too much because there are so many JRPGs where I grind the fuck out of it and then the rest of the game is fucking boring as shit, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard to know where that stopping point is though.
And it comes from using the save button as much as possible before you go into a boss fight, and realizing if you need to grind some more or not.
Like that's everyone's concern with Ni no Kuni 2, right? Is that it's way too easy, so much that they're actually adding a hard mode now, you know?
And then also, what I was talking about earlier, seeing like single player stats and what you can do with them. Like, in Bravely Default, the characters that you get, there's really only 1 point in like one category that's like really different between the 4 of them. So they can really, or between the 3 of them, and you can really do a lot of different things with them in that aspect and not really set to do it. But a lot of people are like, oh, well, this girl originally kind of looked like a witch, so we're going to make her that. And I notice a lot of the parties are the same, but I'm not really looking at that 1 point of difference.
Yeah.
Which sometimes makes or breaks the game, because the only real way to change like the base stats kind of without like the class and like and the gear and stuff is like these little buns that you can buy later in the game. And really using that to add like a min-max kind of thing. I do enjoy, which is probably why I enjoyed Persona so much, min-maxing out like character stats. I think it's really like it's like a game in itself. Like, how can I do this the best way? And I find it super interesting. And sometimes I completely fail at it, and I just spent 40 hours on that.
Yeah, but when you get it, it's so good.
It is so good, but like also it's seeing that time of figuring it out not as like wasted, like when you could have been playing the game. Like you are playing the game.
Yeah.
Like but also it's I think a lot of both. We mentioned it earlier with RTSs, always just being reactive instead of like proactive and thinking 3 steps ahead. I think a lot of people have a hard time with, not saying that you in particular, but have a hard time with RTS in seeing the small picture and the big picture at the same time. And I feel like that perspective, like you mentioned earlier, really helps with the JRPGs with seeing things as a group, with seeing where you need to maximize things. Think about where you are in the story and that is important by like looking into the lore. I know a lot of people just skip through it because it's a fuck ton of it most of the time. But like it gives you, honestly, I feel like it gives you a lot of hints and perspective where you should be in the game and where you kind of are. If you're just learning about new things, then normally you are in the beginning of the game. If you're finding out like characters that you've already recognized the names of, and like things that are to be coming or this person is coming, then you can kind of figure out where you are in the middle towards the end.
Well, it's hard with JRPGs, right? Because like you'll have certain games like
some have localization issues.
Suikoden that can kind of just throw you straight into it, where you'll have like certain earlier Dragon Quests where like you're at the beginning of the game for 40 hours, you know.
I think one of the things that I think people struggle with RPGs, well, specifically with JRPGs, and if you're just coming into them new, from like if your primary the game that you played the most was like third-person shooters, right? Like the game is like taking you from beat to beat, like without like you having to do anything, and I think that sometimes people struggle with RPGs in that like, well, I expect this to also be a linear experience, like just let me go from this place to this place without having to worry and like without thinking about like, well, I need to develop these skills, like I don't know what these numbers mean, just like take me to the next like bad guy.
Yeah, and then you get to a point where you're like lander leveled and you didn't realize it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that also...
Oh, I mean, then you get Final Fantasy 13, right? Like, that's basically what that game was made for. Even 15 and Kingdom Hearts, to an extent, are that way. But, like, obviously, with 13, that was not exactly what people were looking for, even though Square Enix thought it was.
And I feel like even...
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. I feel like even, like, with Western RPGs, those are... I feel like those are getting closer and closer to just, like, straight-up action games as I...
Oh, totally.
But like it's action games with more numbers on them, you know, and
yeah.
And so even if I were to go from you know, a Western RPG, like if I were to try to go from Kingdoms of Amalur, and then try to jump into like a Bravely Default, like I've, you know,
Yeah, so that's a jarring. That's very different.
yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Well, the Atelier games is like that's so much about like crafting and alchemy. Like that's definitely a bit different than a lot of just regular. Here's your Final Fantasy game, you know. But
but even then, like I don't know. Even then, I think the advice can still apply is to see what like people in your group is, and like also just like like I said, a quick Google I think is my advice before you start an RPG, just to see what the side characters are like, and what you can really do with them. Like there's plenty of information out there that is really easy to avoid spoilers about like the story if that's what you're interested in, but like I'm so terrible. The Final Fantasy 14, not 14, 15, where you whenever you had the multiple characters and they would have like the different names for the combos and like the skill sets they would have. That was actually pretty interesting in my opinion. Obviously it's not my favorite Final Fantasy game, but like I thought it was pretty interesting, like being able to give them the different skill sets and pairing them up and seeing, and like I liked the names.
Yeah.
I thought that was fun. I thought it was fun finding new pairings and what works for situations.
First Final Fantasy that I ever beat.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's but my advice with especially JRPGs is, and when you have like when you have like people in your party that are like side characters, just really pay attention to how you can utilize them, because I think that you'll get a lot more enjoyment out of the game. I think that you'll have less time where you will be like, oh shit, I'm under leveled, and then go have to grind and go back. I think focusing on not focusing, but putting it as somewhat of a priority of seeing it as a group is really advantageous.
I think looking like you said, like looking online before you start a game is helpful, specifically because a lot of those games, JRPGs specifically, like they make a lot of assumptions about whether or not you've played a game like that before. They make a lot of assumptions that you understand, like you know, like all like what these numbers mean and like what these stats mean.
And when you start a game, you want to get into it. So yeah, like I'm also guilty of it, like skipping like tutorial stuff. I'm like, okay, yes, I get how to jump, I get how to block, blah blah blah, and then it's like, hey, do this, and you'll level up so much faster. And I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever, guy, I don't care. Like,
well, I also think it has a lot to do with a lot of games. Even if they have a tutorial, it's often not a very good tutorial. Which is why I try to point out when I play a game that does have a good tutorial, like Killer Instinct has a phenomenal tutorial. In that, like, and the new Trials game seems like it will have a great tutorial. In that, like, many games tell you what things do, but very few games tell you how to put that into motion. You know.
Yeah.
No, I definitely can agree with that.
Yeah. Cool.
That's my advice. Pay attention to your party.
Yeah. Thanks, Shanee.
Anything else, guys?
Stay in school.
Okay.
Don't do drugs till you're an adult.
Well, all right.
Okay.
I feel like you have more fun with it in high school.
I don't know. Eat more fiber.
I would say take a chance on a type of game that you've never played before, because you might find a new favorite kind of game.
Okay. That's probably true.
Yeah. What I'm saying is you should be playing Euro Truck Simulator right now.
I mean, you liked it.
Yeah?
A lot of people like that farming simulator.
Yeah.
So.
I think that if you tried it, you might find the loop interesting.
Sure.
Take a poop break before you play a game for the first time. Spend the entire poop break just Googling a little bit about it.
Nah, I feel like you want to go into
Prepare.
every game with a full colon.
Prepare by emptying your colon and reading
That's
like
baby
5
mode.
minutes or less of a Google search.
Yeah.
I think it's okay to realize that a game's just not for you and bounce.
Yeah. Yeah, don't, like that was kind of the thing for me, right? Is that, like, they're kind of like how, like, a lot of the times, like, people, like, I always felt like the Beatles was one of those bands that I was supposed to like because everybody likes them, and then I would just listen to them only because I thought I was supposed to.
Right.
And I just wasn't having a good time.
Right.
And there have been games like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There'd be like for example, like I'd played a lot of Modern Warfare 2, despite the fact that I was not having a good time.
Yeah.
But like I thought that I was like everybody else liked it, and I just couldn't. I was trying not to accept the fact that it just wasn't for me.
Sure.
What I'm saying is Call of Duty is garbage. It's not what I'm saying, but
Had that conversation earlier today
with who?
with James Sandusky.
Oh.
That he said Call of Duty was garbage.
He didn't say that, but I was defending Call of Duty. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's going to be it for this week's episode 146, I think, of the Save Continue broadcast.
Might be 147 actually.
Maybe.
No, it's 146. It's 146.
So, you know, if you're listening to us, because it seems like a lot more of you listen to us than watch us, go give us a watch, maybe. Smashing that bell.
Oh, see what our faces look like.
You will be disappointed.
Yeah.
Nah.
I mean, I always am.
I feel like I'm a good-looking guy.
I mean, not by you, Ryan, by the two monsters on either side.
Sure.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, also, don't play pranks on your friends because they'll hate it.
that's true.
Don't play pranks on your friends that aren't funny.
It was fucking funny.
Yeah. See you next week, guys.
Goodbye.
Bye.